Welcome to Football Never Sleeps, the aspiring to be viral, properly caffeinated, original contented, weekly YouTube show all about Notre Dame football and a fan base that can comfortably drink the college football playoff Kool-Aid without feeling like it's a jinx. I'm Eric Hansen in South Bend and counting down the days to the start of training camp. He's Tyler James, back in LaPorte, back from vacation and counting how many bad puns I can work into this intro. Together, we are the content creators and still the new guys at blueandgold.com. On tonight's show, if you can remember Miss Cleo and her 900 psychic hotline, you're going to love what we have ahead for you tonight. Lots of predictions galore about the quarterbacks, about the other positions beyond the quarterbacks, and how they'll all end up. Lots of recruiting news coming your way as well as your questions, quips, and compliments. So start filling up the question portal. This is
Nailed it, Eric. You nailed that one like you were in mid-season form. That was excellent. Well done. I tried to do my best to not frown through the intro, so hopefully I look like I enjoyed my vacation. I'm happy to be back here with Eric on Football Never Sleeps. Not quite football season yet, but we're getting close, and happy to be done with vacation season and getting closer to the football game that we love so much. Welcome in to everyone watching us live. Hit that like button so we can get things rolling. Shout out to Johnny S3, Jeff Stevens, Irish fan, Brian Habermill, Rajon, EJ Ricky. Nice seeing you all in the chat. We have been overwhelmed with the number of folks who have become new subscribers to blueandgold.com since Eric and I joined the staff earlier this month. And fortunately, you don't have to beg to join like Memphis did to the Big 12 conference. All you got to do is head over to blueandgold.com and sign up for an annual subscription with a $1 trial for the first week. That will get you access to everything we do, the growing community on the Loose Emoji board, and so much premium content to fill your days before football season begins. Make sure you're subscribed to us here on YouTube. Our channel name has changed. The @ handle is Hansen and James. But the same content you should expect to see from us with some new tweaks, maybe some more video podcasts throughout the season. Hit the subscribe button. Make sure that our content continues to get sent your way into your feed. And let's get things rolling, Eric.
All right. Well, our opening drive tonight is Inside Notre Dame's camp battles, freshman breakouts, and quarterback predictions. At least that's the SEO-friendly version of it. Actually, we've got lots of predictions to make beyond the quarterbacks. But we're going to start there and break down the position a little bit. So for those of you that are visiting us from another planet, the two players that are competing to be starting quarterback for Notre Dame are redshirt freshman CJ Carr, redshirt sophomore Kenny Minchey. In the background are a couple other players. We'll talk about them a little bit later. Each of those guys just logged 4 snaps all season, and that includes the regular season and the playoff run to the national championship game. So I'm going to start with some questions for Tyler. You guys jump in with any questions you might have. Again, we're going to start with the quarterbacks. So Tyler, in terms of experience, are both of these guys on an even playing field, given the fact that Minchey was here a year earlier and yet was under a different offensive coordinator in that first year?
I think so. I think that there isn't a big enough – Minchey didn't get enough experience in meaningful ways to make a difference, in my opinion. He might – maybe the biggest difference is maybe there's some teammates he knows better just from being on campus longer with those guys. But otherwise, I think they're on a pretty level playing field in terms of their ability to feel comfortable in what Mike Denbrock wants to do running the offense, and just be comfortable potentially being the starting quarterback at Notre Dame. What do you think?
I agree. I think having the scheme change, I also think, Kenny had some, when you think about their high school development, Kenny had an injury during his high school where he missed almost a full season. I think CJ Carr has been throwing passes since he was in the crib. And so I think it's a pretty even thing in terms of experience. So the next question I have is, who do you perceive as the better passer the more accurate passer, I should say? And do you feel like there's a sizable gap there?
I think CJ Carr is the more accurate passer. I don't think that it's that sizable. I would need to see more of Minchey struggling to say there's a big gap, and that isn't something I've seen. Also, I mean, just sample size. We haven't seen a ton of these guys as college quarterbacks, even in practices. So I just don't. I don't think Minchey is necessarily an inaccurate quarterback. So that's why I say it's not necessarily a sizable gap.
For me, I definitely think it's CJ Carr. I think CJ Carr is more accurate in, again, a small sample size than certainly Riley Leonard and a lot of the quarterbacks I've seen come through Notre Dame. He is really able to put the ball on the money. I think Kenny Minchey used to be kind of average with that. I think he kind of closed the gap some, certainly enough that Steve Angeli didn't feel comfortable in continuing the quarterback competition through the summer and into fall camp. I thought Kenny Minchey improved in a lot of ways, and that was one of the ways that I thought he improved a lot. In terms of who's the better runner, this is a layup, but who's the better runner, and is it by a wide margin?
I think Minchey is the better runner. Like you said, it's a layup. I think it's a bit overstated how sizable the gap is between them. Minchey isn't Riley Leonard. CJ Carr isn't Jack Cohn. Minchey is better as a runner than Carr, but I don't think he's that much better as a runner or like so good as a runner that it would change your offensive scheme in significant ways in terms of what you want to do as an offense, which I think you may have done some last year with Riley Leonard as your quarterback.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with you. I think CJ's footwork is maybe underrated from the standpoint. I do think he can buy himself some time. I do think he does things that older quarterbacks haven't gotten down. He has as a young quarterback. Where I see Kenny Minchey's footwork really kind of magical is some of the things he does with his feet are really difficult for defenses to prepare for. It's just so unexpected. But again, he's not, when it's 4th and 1, 3rd and 1, he's not that Riley Leonard that you go, okay, guess who's getting the ball and guess who's not stopping him. So, okay. Better arm strength. This would be hard for me to measure. I'll see how well you measure it.
Yeah, I said it was a toss-up. I'm not sure there's a big gap there. I think CJ Carr throws tight spirals, and I think that I guess it depends on how you're measuring arm strength. Who can throw it the farthest, who can throw it the fastest, like who can get the ball where it needs to be the quickest. I would say I wouldn't be surprised if Minchey could throw it like physically farther. I'm not sure that he would be able to throw at such distances more consistently than CJ Carr could.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I think it's close. I think Minchey has arm talent. I think CJ may be a little bit better there. And again, sometimes you read into it by the accuracy, and CJ has the confidence maybe to throw down the field more. But it felt like in the last practices that we saw of spring, I finally started to see that from Minchey. So that's what kind of changed my opinion a little bit. So who's better at reading defenses?
I would say CJ Carr. He has never looked uncomfortable to me in any setting that I've seen him playing quarterback. So that's not to downgrade Kenny Minchey, but I just think that's one of the things that could potentially make CJ Carr a special college quarterback. So that's why I went with Carr.
I agree with you there. I haven't seen him make a lot of mistakes in terms of his reads and in terms of, and again, we don't always know what the defense is trying to do, but you don't see him forcing passes into coverage. One time I can remember that. With Kenny, he can get into a rhythm of making a bunch of good decisions, and then all of a sudden they're in the red zone and he throws an interception in the end zone. Before, I think that was even more of a problem. You'd see it in other areas of the field. I think, again, this is an evolution for him. He's getting better at it, but I think CJ's the better of the two. This one is really difficult for me to answer because it's hard without getting the answer from Gino or Mike Denbrock. Who's better at playing chess at the line of scrimmage, do you think?
Yeah, I don't know that I have a great feel for this, but I would just side with Carr. I wouldn't, given his background and his history with football, it would be hard for me to underestimate him as a student of the game. So I would lean towards Carr here, though admitting that Minchey could be great at it. It's just that's something I wouldn't necessarily know that he's great at.
Right. I think it was something with CJ he was kind of taught to do and pushed to do because of his skill set earlier in his high school and, pre-college career, where Kenny, I could see them saying, just run around and make plays. And then there came a point where that became, reading defenses and changing plays at the line of scrimmage became a required skill set. Maybe not till he came to Notre Dame. Are the skill sets different enough, Tyler, that, and maybe incomplete for either of them enough where you say, you know what, whoever's number 2 should have some kind of role, whether it be a package or a niche role? And does it depend on who's number 1, how you answer that question?
Yeah, I think this is more of a philosophy thing, like a personal philosophy thing. To me, you only have that niche role, number 2 quarterback role package if your offense isn't a complete offense. Because I feel like niche quarterbacks help you cover up holes in your offense, and the best offenses don't necessarily need that. So I don't think so. I think they're probably, if you wanted to, you could do some things. Say if CJ Carr is your starter, if you want to do some things with Kenny Minchey's legs and get him in the game in different ways, that could be an option. I'm not a fan of that personally, but I think there could be a role for him in that scenario.
Well, let me ask you this off the cuff here. If Notre Dame saw a weakness in a defense and they said, wow, Wildcat would be really good at certain spots on the field, would you rather see Minchey out there kind of doing that, or would you rather see somebody like Jeremiah Love back there?
Yeah, I'd probably rather get more running backs on the field than a different quarterback, because for as good as Minchey is with his legs, he's not as good as the running backs are. Granted, those guys aren't going to throw passes, but I'd rather play with my running back talent on the field and lean into that, because Notre Dame does have that, than to put someone like Minchey out there personally.
Got just a few more quickies here before we get to your questions. How important is it to bring freshman Blake Hebert along at a brisk developmental pace?
Very important. I mean, he's one play away from being the primary backup, potentially. So I think his development will be important. It's good that he's been here since the playoff process was going on, and has been able to adapt to what it's like to be a Notre Dame student, and learn more about Notre Dame's offense. So, yeah, I think it'll be a very important preseason camp for him as well.
I agree, and he could very well be the number 2 quarterback next year if somebody decided to jump in the portal. Whoever doesn't win the quarterback race jumps in the portal in December, or whenever they have the portal window this year. They're talking about just having one. That's not passed yet. Okay, Marcus Freeman meets with the media a week from Thursday for the first time, and then not again scheduled until August 17th. Now, we have interviews with others in between then, but that's how it will work. And these are always subject to change. So my question to you is, does Marcus make the announcement on the quarterback before August 17th?
I would say yes, before August 17th.
I would agree. How about before August 10th, which would be basically 10 or 11 days into camp?
I would probably say after that, maybe threading the needle there, but I think they want to give it some time. They don't want it to. I mean, if it is a legit competition, which it has been sold as, I think it needs some time for those guys to have meaningful opportunities this fall or this preseason. So I would guess in between. I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if it was before August 10th by any means, but I would say between August 10th and August 17th.
I also think that's the sweet spot. So who is quarterback number one? I don't think this is a big mystery because we've been saying it throughout our summer shows, but vacation could have changed your mind.
Yeah, maybe I got some intel while spending some time in Michigan. CJ Carr is my belief to be quarterback one. I think he will win the job.
Last question before we hit the question portal here for your questions, your viewer questions. Do you think Tyler Buckner will move back to quarterback full time? And if he does, should he be the number 3 instead of Blake Hebert?
I do think he should move back to quarterback full time. I think it would be helpful to have another body there with experience. I don't necessarily think he needs to be the number 3, especially when we're talking about how important it is for Hebert to develop. Maybe it's better for Buckner to take some of the scout team load off of Hebert. I know Anthony Rizak can do that as well. But I think I would moving Buckner to quarterback doesn't necessarily mean that he needs to be the number 3 quarterback, in my opinion.
I would agree with you there. So I want to hear our viewer questions. So let's hit some of those.
All right. Yeah, there were a few hopping on our quarterback questions. Rajan said, you think their skills are close. Which guy has the most moxie, i.e. confidence?
I think they're both high there. I don't think Minchey always was. I think, again, he's made a lot of strides in that area. But I think CJ Carr walked in the door with it. I remember him interviewing him maybe going into his high school senior season and thinking, wow, how mature is he? And again, it's not just having that, football background so steeped with your grandpa being a former Michigan head coach. It's also, life experience. He had a little brother who had a brain tumor, died of that, Chad. And those kind of events change you. And there's this mental toughness and not taking things for granted kind of urgency to everything CJ Carr does. And so that's why I would give him the edge there.
Yeah, I think the same. Like Carr, I feel like in some ways maybe I'm overhyping him. I just like there's no obvious things to me that he doesn't have. And so I think confidence and moxie and those kinds of things, like the way he carries himself, I think that all that's there as well. So I don't think that would be a reason that he would potentially falter because it just feels like he's been, I think someone said in the comments, like he's been bred for this. Like this is what CJ Carr was put on this earth to do. And I think it's just a matter of time before he can put that all together. Outbound said kind of like a Tommy / Golston. And I know that was one that we were discussing, sort of a 2 quarterback system. What are your thoughts on if something like that with how those 2 were used would work?
Penn State did a good job with theirs last year. I think the Tommy Golson thing was more rookie and veteran kind of bring a veteran in from the bullpen. And they did have different skill sets. But with CJ and Minchey, it would be, again, just to get that running element. So it'd be more like what Penn State did with Drew Aller and their backup last year. That's kind of how I see it a little bit more. Brian Kelly had toyed with that concept in 2011. He started the year with Dane Christ as the starter. Tommy Reese overtook him during a lightning delay. Instead of having lightning delay hot dogs, they had lightning delay quarterback change. And then he thought, okay, do I want Everett Golson as a true freshman or Andrew Hendricks as kind of a redshirt freshman guy to be a change-up quarterback? And he used the Andrew Hendricks thing a little bit, not as much as I think he thought he was going to. But to answer your question, not quite the Tommy and the Golson comparison.
Yeah. Excuse me. I agree with that. It's just it's a little too different. There's not a clear like veteran like Reese was compared to Golson. All right, Justin Kane says, my recollection is that Minchey had a better jersey scrimmage the week before and Carr a better blue gold game. When did Carr take the clear lead, at least per media?
I think Carr took the clear lead in the media's eyes probably before last season. I think there were things that I saw of CJ Carr pre-freshman season where I said that's a better long-term investment than Minchey. But I always liked Minchey. I just felt like he was more raw and could you get the mistakes out of his game. And I thought that was definitely possible because besides being very athletic, he is super smart and he picks things up very quickly. And you could see in the spring cycle of how he kind of launched himself into the, he was kind of the afterthought going into spring, and he became a contender and in my mind, leaped over Steve Angeli, or at least blurred the line enough where Steve Angeli said, I need to go somewhere else.
Yeah, I think everyone sort of has their own perceptions of it. Like it hasn't been as much like a horse race where like guys are going back and forth and someone's necking forward. And I just think Carr has been steady throughout, and I think has the highest ceiling of the group. And that's why I've been confident that he would end up being the starter. Outbound says, would it worry you if Carr was to go down and Minchey has to come in the game for a game-winning drive cold off the bench? Seems Minchey takes a few series to get going.
I wouldn't worry about him coming off the bench. I think what would be the more difficult assignment for Kenny is if that injury created a start for him the next week and a defensive coordinator had a whole week to plot against him, to kind of probe his weaknesses and try to get him to play left-handed. I think coming into a game, he's harder to deal with because you haven't scouted him as deeply, and he does so many things that are ad lib that it does make it difficult to account for that.
Yeah, who was it against LSU when Marcel Reed, the A&M quarterback, came in and they just had no plan for him? Like I don't think Kenny Minchey is quite the athlete that Reed is, but I think if you come into a game, you can I think would be natural for Minchey to maybe rely on his legs in situations like that, and obviously you hope you're not down a lot and he has to throw a ton to get back in the game because that's not a winning situation for any quarterback making their first meaningful appearance in a college football game. So, I don't know that I would worry about him any more than any other inexperienced quarterback that would be thrown in that position. I'm not sure that I fully buy or have enough information to believe that he takes a few series to get going when thrown into a game like that. All right, TD4ND, does Eric practice the intro?
Oh, you want my secrets. Okay. So what I do is I will put together an intro and I will play the music to see if I'm close in terms of the timing. And then I will try to remember it so that I don't have to read it. I used to read it, and my grandson Reed said, Grandpa, it looks like you're reading that. And I said, I am reading it. And he goes, well, it's not what you want to do. He goes, you want to be more inviting. You want to look at the camera. And he goes, that would be my suggestion on helping you. And I said, okay, here's a steak dinner. And so that's what I started doing.
He became a full-time consultant for us.
He did. Exactly. Don't wear the white shirt. Oops.
David Nettleton, more on the quarterback stuff. Does the higher pressure situations playing in the big house as a high school sophomore in 2021 and playing against Underwood in the Michigan high school playoffs give Carr a more proven resume than Minchey?
I don't know necessarily. I think that the ones that you pointed out, now that I kind of settle into the question, David, I think CJ Carr's been playing with pressure his whole life because of what his last name is. And so I think he probably certainly has more practice dealing with the pressure situation. So yeah, I do think it's an advantage, and he's taken advantage of that situation. He's turned it into a positive for himself instead of this big heavy backpack that he carries around.
Yeah, I would agree. Like, it's not, those are items on the resume, but I think there's a lot that goes into it beyond that, and even earlier than that, that allow him to be a more mature. I mean, I guess you don't have to be that doesn't automatically make you mature. The way he's handled everything has shown that he is a mature quarterback and someone that can handle those situations and the responsibilities and everything that comes with that. Mike DeVoy says, does Miami come out with 8 in the box and daring Carr to beat them with his arm?
That's what I would start out with. If I were Miami, I would say prove it and put the pressure on his arm and hope that the stadium's noisy and rattles him, which I don't think he'll get rattled. I think the stadium will be noisy. But yeah, that's where I would start if I were their defensive coordinator. I'd be ready to switch out of that.
Yeah, I would probably maybe try to be more confusing than just like, here's all of our guys. Hey, CJ, just throw it deep. Like, I think CJ, like if you boil it down, I think CJ's capable of making the throw like that. I think you got to be a little bit more confusing or be able to get that pressure home, which Miami could, because Miami does have some good pass rushers. So I think that is a possible scenario. And certainly Miami is going to want to limit Notre Dame's running game as much as it can. So that would be a high priority. But I think it has to be smart in terms of taking chances to allow CJ Carr to have a big play early, and all of a sudden his confidence is through the roof, and then Miami's defense is playing on its heels.
Mike, this is where the portal really changed the team, because Miami did that some last year, and they didn't have a good defensive backfield, and they didn't have recruits that were going to help them, and they went to the portal and they loaded up on defensive backs. So they're going to be better than average on the back end, where last year that was their weakness, was pass efficiency defense.
All right. EJ Ricky says, with the recent media tour and select players being chosen to accompany Coach Freeman, is there ever a concern that this could negatively impact team chemistry?
Well, EJ, you're assuming that guys want to talk to the media. I don't think it does. I think that they all get a chance to deal with the media. Now, maybe not in New York, and they do try to pick players that are leaders on the team that other players admire and that are important players on the team, that it's kind of obvious. I mean, if they had taken like Elijah Hughes, and not picking on Elijah, but he's maybe the third string defensive tackle. If they had taken him to New York, then you'd say, maybe that wasn't a great, but I mean, they took the players that they feel are going to be their big time players on the team and that have earned that.
Yeah, I don't think there's no one that I saw, and I'm not sure if this is the complete list. I just pulled up a photo from when they were at the Mets game, and there was Eli Raridan, Jeremiah Love, Jordan Faison, Adon Schuler, Leonard Moore, and Emil Wagner. So those are all guys that have playing experience, have plenty of media experience as well, and guys that they trust on the football field and with a microphone in front of their face. So those are big reasons why those guys were chosen. I don't see, like, there's so many different opportunities that so many players get at Notre Dame as it relates to cool opportunities to travel or speak to reporters or be in stadiums that they've dreamed about. There's just so many situations where Notre Dame football players get to do things that they probably would have dreamed of doing as kids, that I don't think that they're like, oh man, what does that mean about me and my chopped liver? I didn't get to make the media tour to New York.
Plus, in the NIL era, you can have your own podcast. If Notre Dame's not going to bring you to New York, you can go to New York yourself and have a tour.
Nicholas Green says, with the addition of both quarterbacks being able to pass, do you think passing to set up the run or run to set up the pass? What is the best plan of attack?
I think it depends on the point in the season, on the point in the game, how those quarterbacks perform early, and what the defense's strengths and weaknesses are. So I don't have a hard and fast philosophy that way that I would throw that template. I think that's a little bit too predictable. And that's what you want as an offense. Sometimes Notre Dame has been in a position where their template's pretty predictable.
Yeah.
But I think Mike Denbrock and how Notre Dame's been able to recruit and add through the portal has made them a more difficult offense to prepare for, where the defensive coordinator is going to be asking himself that question.
Yeah, I don't expect Notre Dame to be bad at one aspect of offense, where so you can overcompensate as a defense to prevent your Notre Dame's running game from breaking out because you just think the passing game is terrible. I don't think that's going to be the case. So that allows the offense to be more balanced. You can be patient in trying to establish what you want to do, whether it's in the running game or the passing game. So I think the most likely scenario is that Notre Dame is establishing the run to set up the pass. But I think what Notre Dame hopes it can be is a passing offense that can loosen things up and allow the running game to thrive as it would be expected to. Speaking of one of the guys that was in New York, is Eli Raridon as important to the success of this offense as I think he is? Oh, and this is from Brian Habermill. I think the tight end gets the weakest pass defender on the field in a 3 wide receiver, 1 tight end set.
Well, again, it depends on how the other team chooses to defend the tight end. I don't think Michael Mayer, when he was the tight end, had the weakest defender of what was available on the defense. But let me answer the meat of your question, Brian. I think Eli Raridon is going to have a breakout season. I think he is going to be a really important part of this offense, and I think his production is going to be pretty good. And I'll just end there because I think it's one of our predictions later. But there's going to be others, and that's what makes it so good. I think Malachi Fields is going to surprise a lot of people. I think the wide receiver core as a unit is going to be better than people think. And then you have these tremendous running backs who can also catch the ball. And I think they all play off each other and enhance each other. Tyler, I'll let you do that without screwing up the prediction game.
Yeah, I think Eli Raridon is important, in part because I think there is a big gap between him and the rest of the tight ends that Notre Dame has in terms of their capability this coming season. I think he has the highest ceiling, and if he reaches what he's capable of doing, can become a real threat to defenses and really make things hard for opponents to sort of game plan for when you have some other receivers. You got Malachi Fields with size that can make plays down the field, and if Eli Raridon can do that in the middle of the field, that can open things up for guys like Jaden Greathouse and Jordan Faison and Will Pauling. So I think he's very important, and his blocking is critical as well in terms of what Notre Dame wants to do with the running game. All right, Jeff Stevens says, "What do you expect when do you expect the team captains to be announced? Care to comment on a couple likely ones?"
Probably maybe middle of training camp, maybe in the middle of August. I get asked this a lot. I'd like to kind of see them in the first part of training camp to see what happened during the summer and who emerged, and especially around the Charles Jagaza injury. I think that's when you find out who your leaders are, when you get a puff at adversity, who steps forward and kind of pulls the team along. Drake Bowen, off the top of my head, I think there's a few guys on the offensive line. Some of the guys that were in New York look like pretty good captains. I think Adon would be really a good captain, Adon Schuler in the back end of the defense. Leonard Moore for a sophomore, I don't know if they would do that, but I'd follow him. He's a really mature guy who plays really well. So I'm not much better on the captain answer than I am as the uniform answers.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because I think there are, at least to me, more obvious answers in the junior class than the senior class. Because even some of the guys that are experienced as seniors, like Junior Tui Halamaka is a great leader, a great player, or a great. He has a great story, but it's Junior Tui Halamaka who's probably your third string tight end or defensive end. Is he worthy of being a captain? I don't know that you would do that. Jordan Botello is someone that I thought could be, but he keeps getting hurt, so I wonder if that hurts his ability to be a captain. Eli Raridon could be a captain when you look at that senior class. Would we rule out that maybe one of the transfers is? Maybe someone could. Maybe a Devontae Smith or Will Pauling come in and really establish themselves as leaders. But yeah, that junior class where it's Emil Wagner, like you mentioned, Adon Schuler, Christian Gray. I think those guys would be great leaders. Jeremiah Love. I think all those guys. Drake Bowen. There's a lot of obvious candidates in that class. So I think there's a chance there might be more in that class than the older class this coming season. All right, David Nettleton has a question that I don't know if we have an answer to, but maybe we can give a guess. When was the last time Notre Dame had a wide receiver room, with four receivers combining for over 2,100 receiving yards?
I was told there would be no math tonight. David, I'll tell you what, if you can leave that question in the comments, I will look it up for you and give you an answer. How's that sound?
Yeah, I was trying to think like 2015 maybe would be the first place I would check. Yeah, and that might be our answer because Fuller had 1,258 by himself. Chris Brown had 597. Amir Carlisle 355. Torrey Hunter Jr. 363. So does that get us to 21? I think so. That might be the answer. But that was just a year that I thought that might be an answer, but I don't know if anything since then would match that. But we can look that up after the show to give you a more firm answer. All right, let me see if I missed any questions here. I don't think so. There's one that's about right guard, but we'll get into that here in a little bit. So we appreciate the question, Rajon, but we'll talk about it here shortly.
Okay, well, we're going to get predictions beyond the QBs, and we're going to start on offense. So, Tyler, how deep will the running back rotation be, and who's the last man in that rotation?
I think when healthy, I think it's just three. I think it's Love, Price, and Aeneas Williams. I think those are the three running backs. I think there are worthy candidates beyond those three, but I'm just not sure that Notre Dame's going to get to a regular four-man running back rotation. What do you think?
Yeah, I guess it's how much usage that fourth guy does. I mean, Jaywan Sider, the new running backs coach, said walking in the door, 4 is as deep as I can go. And you look at what Penn State did last year, and they had tremendous 1 and 2. So it was, not surprising that 3 and 4 didn't get too much. I'm going to say 4 because I think Kedron Young has a chance to be a niche player, and I think we'll find out in the first couple of weeks at camp if that happens. So I'll go 4, and I'll go with Kedron as the last man in. And the next one would be how deep will the wide receiver position go, and who might surprise and be the last one in that rotation. So we're talking 3 wide receiver positions, that total number of receivers in the rotation. So what would you say to that? And then who's maybe the surprise last one? Who could maybe surprise?
This one's tough.
Top 5 are easy.
Yeah, and that's about as far as I'm willing to go in terms of okay, I think Notre Dame will be able to confidently play 5. I think there are candidates for a 6th guy. I'm just not sure that it'll get that far. So, I mean, who might be a surprise? To me, the surprise that I've been focusing on is maybe Elijah Burris. I like what he did in the spring, and he could find his way into the rotation. I think Logan Saldate could be a candidate for that as well, and KK Smith, but I like Burris the most of that. What are your thoughts, Eric?
I think they'll go 6 just because I think Micah Gilbert is in the 5, and he plays the same position as Malachi. I think Malachi is going to be hard. Fields is going to be hard to take off the field. So that leaves a little bit of wiggle room over at the outside receiver. I think Pauling's going to bounce back and forth between the slot and outside, but I think either Cam Williams is my surprise. I think he would be the surprise to emerge because he'd have to move back over there. And I think he probably will. And I think Burris is probably the safer choice to emerge over there behind Jordan Faison or KK, but I'm going to go with Cam Williams. I'm going to shoot for a surprise. If I get that one right, then I'm going to open up my 900 psychic copy.
There are going to be a lot of people that are happy about that. We get plenty of Cam Williams questions.
Okay, who will replace Charles Jagaza in the starting lineup August 31st at Miami? Who will be the 5th offensive lineman?
I'm going with Sullivan Absher. I just think he's too obvious a replacement at this point to sort of put anyone else ahead of him. So that's where I'm going right now.
I'm going to also go with Absher. I think that's safe. I'm not ruling out a different scenario. Bob Morton was with us last week, and he made the case of maybe making a couple of moves and putting somebody at left tackle, but I think he likes Sullivan, so I'm going to go with Sullivan as well. Speaking of the offensive line, who of the other four do you think is going to be the most improved player?
I went with Billy Schrauth. I don't think he played to the level that he's capable of last year because of his injuries. So I think that this is a year where Billy Schrauth can get close to being the dominant version that he can be. So that's why I went with him. I think you could probably say any of them realistically and not feel silly. Anthony Knapp might be the second one I would pick just because I think there's so much room to grow there for him. But I think all those guys are capable of making big leaps again this season.
Yeah, I think the point about Anthony Knapp is good because him holding on to left tackle means he had to improve to hold on to it with who's coming up behind him. But I went with Billy as well. And part of that was based on in spring, Joe Rudolph was talking about who the other linemen think is the best lineman, and they all think it's Billy. And I've thought it was Billy walking in the door. I keep wanting him. He gives off Quentin Nelson vibes. I'm not saying he's Quentin Nelson good, but he gives off that vibe. And I feel like we're going to start to see that this year. So that is my fearless prediction there. Okay. Eli Raridon, will he have more catches in 2025 than Mitchell Evans did in 2024 per game? So Evans was at 43 in 16 games. So doing the math, Eli would have to have 35 or more in 2025. So Eli, more catches per game than Mitchell Evans.
I say yes. I think Mitchell Evans would have more per game this year, and with this offense and him being fully healthy for a full season. 3 per game doesn't seem unreachable. So I'm going yes for Eli Raridon there.
Okay. Beyond Heinisch, Anye, Rubio, Dawson, let's say they go 6 deep on interior defensive line. Who would you say are the top 2 candidates to take those last 2 spots?
All right, I'm gonna answer this one, but then before we get more into the defensive one, Nicholas Green asked some good follow-ups on offensive guys I wanted to throw in too. So before
let's do that.
Let me get to the one you just asked though. I think in terms of the interior defensive line going 6 deep, I don't feel very creative with my answer because it's sort of the most experienced guys. But Armel Mukum and Elijah Hughes would probably be my best bets. Sean Sevillano Jr. is someone I want to put in there. I'm just not quite ready to do that yet. So those are Mukum and Hughes are the 2 that I think get Notre Dame to 6 deep on the interior defensive line. Do you agree or disagree?
I agree pretty much with that. Definitely Hughes. The one thing, Notre Dame scouting on portal guys starts in the summer before. They're already looking at the next portal cycle. And so it's not like in the BK days where you're taking somebody that's disgruntled or injured and trying to play it as a lottery ticket. They're scouting these guys pretty good and they know what they're getting. So I think Hughes is a safe one there. Mukum was on the verge last year, and Sevillano just has such a different body type.
Right.
I'm going to go a little bit different answer and say Sevillano.
All right. As for the Nicholas Green follow-up, so Nicholas, good job. Thoughts on Love and Price both reaching 1,000 yards rushing this year?
I do not think they will both unless Notre Dame plays 16 games and that allows them to both get there. But let's say in a 13-game season, and I'm not saying that they wouldn't get to a 16, but let's say 13 games. No, because I think Love is going to get a lot more carries than he did last year. So I don't think Price is going to have the opportunities to get to 1,000, especially as good as Aeneas Williams is.
Yeah, I can see it happening, and Price doesn't need a ton of carries because he has the ability to break break loose for long runs, just like we've seen him do in the past. But yeah, I would be a little. I think the Aeneas Williams of it all. To me, I think Aeneas is very talented, and I'm curious to see what his role is and how they can make him a vital part of the offense this coming season. What that looks like. If you said like rushing and receiving yards, both of them getting there, I would probably feel more confident or comfortable with that, because I think both of them will be able to be used in both the passing and running game. Rushing may be difficult, but like you said, if Notre Dame gets into playing multiple playoff games, then that makes it all that more attainable with the number of games that would be on the schedule.
I think the 2 Penn State guys got over 1,000, if I'm not mistaken.
I think that's correct. Nicholas Green also asked, Fields, Greathouse, Faison, what do you think the pecking order is between those guys?
I think those are the 3 starters. Now, if you're saying who gets the most receptions out of those 3, I would go Fields, Greathouse, Faison, just how you have it listed.
Yeah, agreed. And I wouldn't be surprised if Pauling gets in there maybe ahead of Faison, because I think Pauling could have a big impact as well.
He's impressing this summer. I know that.
Yeah, to me, those 4 are like the clear 4. I think you said there was a clear 5, and I think Gilbert probably makes it a clear 5. He just has to do it a little bit more before I feel confident that he's definitely the 5th.
Before you hype him up?
Before I hype him up, before I give him the Tyler James 2 thumbs up approval. We'll maybe look into trademarking that, but yeah, I think the top 4 are guys that I think Notre Dame is very confident in, and certainly they like where Micah Gilbert is trending as well. All right, those are the follow-ups I had on offense, Eric. Thanks for humoring us, and Nicholas.
Okay, so back to our questions here. Beyond Bryce, we are on the defense. Beyond Bryce Young, Boubacar Traore, and Josh Burnham, who are the next 2 ends? And we're not counting Botello coming back, and we think that he's going to come back, that will have the most impact. Who would you say are the 2?
To me, this was the easiest one, because I'm not sure that there are obvious answers otherwise. So I'm curious if you said someone else, but it's Junior Tui Halamaka and Logan Thomas. I think those are the guys that are the next in line.
I would agree with you there. I think it would have to be a big surprise, and the big surprise would have to be somebody like Christopher Burgess Jr. staying outside this year before he makes the move inside, and then just having such a great camp. They say, hey, Logan Thomas didn't put on the weight we need. He's a great special teams player until he does. Let's go with Christopher Burgess Jr. That's the only kind of avenue that I kind of see there. Okay, a better bet for All-America linebacker in 2025. Drake Bowen, Kingston Viliamu-Asa, or too close to call?
I say Drake Bowen. Not that it's not necessarily that I think it's a guarantee that Drake Bowen is that much better than Kingston Viliamu-Asa next season, but unfortunately, I think name recognition is a part of this process, like the All-America voting process. People know who Drake Bowen is from last season. You have to be a little bit more knowledgeable about Notre Dame to know more about Kingston Viliamu-Asa. So I'm not necessarily sure that unless he has an amazing season and becomes Notre Dame's clear number 1 linebacker, I'm not sure that he would be able to beat out Bowen for an All-America candidacy. What do you think?
I said it was too close to call, and that's not a knock on Bowen, because I've got a vote on the AP All-American team, preseason All-American team, and I probably would vote for Bowen. But I think that Viliamu-Asa, I just have a feeling is going to really have an impactful year. And if Notre Dame has an elite defense, then they're both going to get play. They're both going to be in the conversation. They may take votes away from each other.
Right.
So for me, it's too close to call, because I just think KVA is coming. I just think he's coming. That's my instinct.
I would agree to that aspect of it. I just don't necessarily have enough faith in the voting system and process that would allow him to maybe to lead jump above Drake Bowen.
Okay. Well, as a voter, I am not offended. Who will be ND's next best, most used cornerback beyond Gray and Leonard Moore?
I went with Carson Hobbs, who I think is probably the most likely answer. My wild card would be Dallas Golden. I think he's the one that I personally like among the freshman trio to potentially make an impact at cornerback. I would not be surprised if it was Cree Thomas or Mark Zachary instead. But I really like Dallas Golden's. But I do think Carson Hobbs is in a position at this point in his career that he can be useful and helpful to Notre Dame secondary.
I think Carson had a really, really impressive spring, and I could see him playing some corner and some nickel, and I almost think he might slot more toward the nickel. And I went with a real wild card here. I went with Mark Zachary. So I think I surprised everybody, but I think all those freshman corners and Carson Hobbs are really good. The starting spot opposite Schuler will be?
Yeah, this one's tough. I think it's going to be more of a rotational position than someone like dominating the reps and becoming the guy like Schuler did last year alongside Xavier Watts. So I would go Luke Talich to start the season. Maybe Tay Johnson, if he follows the path that is promised by Eric Hansen, becomes the most starts at that other safety spot. I think Jalen Stroman's going to play. So yeah, this is the one I'm the least certain about. We did the top 25 most important players with blue and gold, and I didn't include a second safety just because I feel like there's going to be a few of them that make impact. So I wasn't sure enough to put one above the rest. What do you think? I think I know what your answer is because I know how much you love Tate Johnson. But what is your answer?
I think Jalen Stroman will open the Miami game as the starter. However, I think those other safeties, Talich and Tate Johnson, are going to play a ton, and I actually think the freshmen are going to play some too. I think they're going to find roles. By the end of the season, Tate Johnson, that's my football crush for the year, so I'm not seeing this with unbiased eyes. I just think he's got such a high ceiling, and I can't get off of that point at this point. So I'm pushing all my chips in the middle of the table for Tate Johnson to be a rising star.
We're going to be calling him Tay Hansen by the end of the season.
Okay. Two freshmen without a clear path to playing time beyond special teams that will forge that anyway. So you can't say James Flanagan because there is a clear path, for example, for him. So two guys that aren't obvious first-year contributors as a position player.
Yeah, two guys that I've mentioned previously as guys that could potentially crack the rotation. So Dallas Golden in the secondary, and then Elijah Burris as a receiver. My third guy that I had was Christopher Burgess. If his development proceeds fast, it would be a surprise to me, honestly, if he does make that leap, because I think he's a very raw player. He's a very physically impressive player, but I think he's a bit raw. And Notre Dame does have so many defensive linemen in terms of numbers that I think it would be hard to do that. But if the light clicks and he is a big time improvement in terms of his technique, then maybe that happens there. But I'm probably speaking for too long on this answer. What do you think, Eric?
I went with guys that looked blocked, and paths look blocked. And I went with Burgess too. He came in at 270. He was 245 when he signed. And in the national camps and the national combines, he always rose to the occasion. So I don't want to count him out. And Jadon Blair, just because 6'5", that's kind of cool. We'll be having the same conversation about Joey O'Brien in another year.
Yeah. So
those are my two. Let's see. Best kickoff and punt options. I wasn't really creative here.
Yeah, I went with Jadarian Price at kick return and Jordan Faison at punt return. What do you have?
Those two as well. Two best comeback stories from injury.
I went Boubacar Traore, who I think will be one of Notre Dame's best players this season if he is healthy and makes the leap that I think he can. And then I went with Ashton Craig. And then for humor, I said CJ Carr because of how worried people were about his elbow injury last year.
I went with the same two. And then finally, Noah Burnett will be Notre Dame's most accurate kicker since.
This was a good one. This might have been the most interesting to me. Not that we have any insight to feel great about what the answer will be, but when you look back at the past field goal percentages from Notre Dame, they haven't been very good lately. I went since Jonathan Dorr. He was 76.2% in his last season as Notre Dame's kicker. So that's what I went. What did you pick, Eric?
I ended up picking Blake Groupie.
Okay.
Okay. Now I'll let you be the quarterback here. Do we want to go to questions and then recruiting, or recruiting and then questions?
We can do a couple questions here. Is this Outbound says, sorry, let me put it on the screen. Is this the year the light comes on for Jalen Sneed?
I think it's on, and it came on during the playoff run and continued into the spring. I'm just, if Al Golden was still the coordinator, I'd know a little bit more what that was going to look like with him being a bigger player, and then Chris Ash being the coordinator. I'm not quite sure what it'll look like, but I do think we'll see a big year out of Jalen Sneed.
Yeah, I would agree. I'm curious what the linebacker usage rate looks like, and does an emergence of Kingston Viliamu-Asa take away from Jalen Sneed? I think there's a possibility it could. How do they get all those guys on the field? But I do think the light is on. I don't think it's I don't think like we're talking about Kingston Viliamu-Asa because of anything that Jalen Sneed isn't. It's just what we think of Kingston Viliamu-Asa and his potential upside and what things we've heard about him. So I think Jalen Sneed has tremendous potential to continue to impact Notre Dame in big ways, which he did at times last year, and even in the college football playoff when Notre Dame needed him the most. All right, that is the only question I actually saw there. So let's forge on into recruiting, Eric.
Okay, so probably the biggest news this week involves a 2027 player, Teddy Gerard. Do you want to share that news, Tyler?
Yeah, Teddy Gerard will announce his commitment decision on Thursday. His finalists right now are Notre Dame, Georgia, Michigan, Ohio State, and Penn State. He's a 6'3", 196-pound quarterback from Kennesaw, Georgia, North Cobb High School. And last week, VP of Recruiting and Transfer Portal for Rivals, Steve Wiltfong, and our coworker at Blue and Gold, Mike Singer, predicted him to eventually commit to Notre Dame. Rivals ranks Gerard as the number 2 quarterback and number 52 overall in the 2027 class. He was at the Rivals 5-star at the end of last month. I was there as well. He impressed me, impressed others as well. And one of 2 quarterback offers Notre Dame made. Peyton Houston seems to be someone maybe trending towards USC. And right now it seems like maybe Teddy Gerard will be willing to take the quarterback spot in Notre Dame's 2027 class. That would be a huge commitment for Notre Dame, and being one of the top quarterbacks in that cycle. Has tremendous upside, comes out of SEC country in Georgia. I think he has an uncle who played at Georgia. So for Notre Dame to go down and potentially pull him out of that state would be impressive. Like Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State, those are top programs right now too. So this is I know people were very critical of how Notre Dame was handling the quarterback recruiting process in the 2027 cycle, and why haven't we offered more guys? Notre Dame has only offered 2, and if it gets one of them, I think there's going to be people eating some major crow in terms of how Notre Dame was handling things, with Gino Guidugli heading things up as Notre Dame's quarterbacks coach.
Well, just last month you were in Indianapolis, probably not eating crow, but eating something else. You saw Teddy Gerard in person. What were your impressions of him?
Yeah, he was very accurate, carried himself well. I think most of the recruits at that event are 2026 guys, so he's a younger player than a lot of the guys there, but you wouldn't necessarily know that by the way he handled himself, by the way he's playing. Made smart decisions in 7-on-7. He won the accuracy competition, was just consistently putting the ball in good places. He threw a nice deep ball I saw to Javian Osborne, and Javian Osborne's not a big guy, so to hit him in stride deep down the field the way he did, that speaks to his arm strength and accuracy, and someone that I think really would fit at Notre Dame and be the kind of quarterback that Notre Dame is looking for. And Notre Dame has struggled at times, I mean, pretty consistently almost, to get elite quarterbacks in back-to-back classes. Like since I've been covering Notre Dame recruiting since 2012, Notre Dame struggles to do that. I know there's discussions on whether or not Noah Grubbs is elite as Notre Dame's 2026 quarterback commitment. But I there seems to be no doubting whether or not Teddy Gerard is elite based on what everyone has seen of him going into his junior season. So this would be a very impressive get for the Irish.
Elijah Golden, a defensive tackle from Sarasota, Florida, Cardinal Mooney High School, was going to commit somewhere on July 26th. That's been pushed back a couple of weeks. Should Notre Dame fans make their way out onto the ledge, or is there good news ahead with Elijah Golden? Or are there just too many Goldens on the roster ahead?
No, there's always room for more Goldens. I think this is a sign that he is uncertain. Like he's not 100% sold. Otherwise, I don't think this happens. He said he told Steve Wilfong that he needed more time to sort out his decision. Notre Dame, Alabama, Oklahoma, and Virginia Tech are the contenders. I liked where Notre Dame was sitting. I still think Notre Dame can end up getting him. I think it's an ongoing battle, and this is a sign that other teams are still making headway with him. I think a lot of people assumed when he announced his commitment date, because so many other guys that we expected to commit to Notre Dame set commitment dates in July, that this was like, okay, this is a done deal. It's just Notre Dame's going to continue to get everyone they want. But that wasn't necessarily the case when he set his commitment date originally. And so him moving it back is just a sign that he wants to make sure that he's certain about what he's doing. And Notre Dame will keep fighting for him. Rivals ranks him as the number 59 defensive lineman and a 3-star recruit. The Rivals industry ranking has him as a 4-star recruit and the number 19 defensive lineman.
And then finally, colleague Kyle Kelly, I believe when you were on vacation, put in RPM, that's our prediction mechanism, for to land a commitment for a 2027 defensive lineman from Hattiesburg, Mississippi. I don't know that Notre Dame's had too many of those. What can you tell us about that player? What's his name and how good is he?
Yeah, Devin Robertson, someone who has been consistently high on Notre Dame since receiving an offer from the Irish earlier this year. He was at Irish Invasion, so that was his last time on campus. A big kid. Rivals ranks him as a 3-star recruit, the number 23 defensive lineman. He's an industry 4-star recruit. So yeah, we'll see if that happens. That would be someone that Notre Dame could potentially build its defensive line class around in the 2027 cycle. Obviously, a group that Notre Dame's still working on in the 2026 class as it relates to Elijah Golden on the defensive line. So we might start seeing some more 2027 commitments trickle in, because I think Notre Dame is a hot commodity right now, and guys want to reserve their spots. And now we'll see. Notre Dame has to be smart about who it takes. Like, does it take guys early if it's not sold on them, or does Notre Dame? I think Notre Dame just has to have a good game plan. And I think it has time to do that because it's had so much success and pretty much completed its 2026 class. And so there needs to be some decisions made on, like, okay, who are our top priorities in the 2027 class, who has the green light to commit, and we'll see if Robertson wants to join and if he has that green light.
All right. Before Tyler decides what we're doing now, I'm going to say like, subscribe, leave a comment. Why? Because it'll prevent fake profiles from Facebook from DMing you and saying how interesting you are. And no, it won't do that. But it's all free, and it helps our channel. Tyler, where are we going? One more question, or are we wrapping
I don't
it
think
up?
I've seen anything else. Outbound says, don't forget to hit that like button, everyone. So appreciate the encouragement, Outbound. I think we were pretty full show. I was interested in your best and worst assistant coaching hires of the 2000s, Eric. Maybe one question: who was the hardest for you to leave off your top 10 assistant hires?
Brian Mason, but he was only there 1 year. But he so impacted that 1 year that he was there, and then he kind of set the template for what Marcus Freeman wanted to get in his successor. And special teams has been a big deal, and it has it has confirmed to Marcus how important as a head coach it is to be fully invested in that. So Brian Mason was the hardest. The hardest to put on the list were Tommy Rees and Bob Diaco, and that's the two I got the most pushback from.
In terms of like where you put them on the list, right?
Or putting them on at all. There were people that
Yeah.
didn't feel like that they were deserving of it. And I can see the arguments. I initially had Rees not on it. Then I said, no, I got to put him on there. Mm-hmm. And then those were the two that got, but Rees probably draws the most divergent opinions of any of the guys that were on any of the lists.
I mean, you can say that since he took his first snap. You can say that about Tommy Rees since he took his first snap as a quarterback at Notre Dame. The one nitpick, and if you have not read this story from Eric, I don't know when it ran last week, but head to blueandgold.com. You can find it there. I would have argued that Elko should be higher on your list and closer to Clark Lee because he should get the credit for Clark Lee being so good. So that was the one small nitpick that I was like, well, maybe those guys should have been closer because Clark Lee never comes to Notre Dame if it's not for Mike Elko, even though he stayed there for 1 year. But I thought it was a good list and definitely thought provoking, and didn't have any like major qualms with who you included or excluded from that list.
Well, I appreciate that. Lots of great content at blueandgold.com. If you're not subscribed, now that does cost something to subscribe to, but it's worth every penny. And you can take a test drive a week for $1. Get that out of the cushions of your couch and send it to us, and we'll sign you up for a week.
All right. Have a good week, everyone. We'll see you next week.